Thank you so much, Lisa. So in 2008, there were these endless news stories about young women who were murdered at the hands of their significant others. And this one particular night in 2008, I was very sure that I was about to be the next one. My name is Lisa Latimer, and I am the owner of Mindset Over Business. I am a self-published author and business mindset coach, but I was not always as confident as I am now. I was not always in as healthy of a mental and emotional space as I am now. So I allowed myself to get into a couple of very toxic relationships from the time I was 16 to about 28 years old. That last one that I mentioned being the most dangerous one. The first one was a lot longer. It was with my high school, not so sweetheart. And I endured, cheating, lying, constant insults. And it's that pulling and that chipping away a little bit more of yourself every day. And when you get into that type of situation, it kind of turns your entire world and everything that you think you know about yourself on its ear. So when I finally had the courage to think better of myself, to say, there's got to be something else going on here. There's got to be something more than just this. It was after that night in 2008. And it wasn't because of a decision that I made, unfortunately. So that night in 2008, where I thought I was going to be the next one, where I would have sworn that my parents were going to be getting a phone call saying, your daughter has been murdered. I had come home late, about 15, 20 minutes from my job. I stopped off at the grocery store to see if they had something I needed, but they didn't. That extra 15, 20 minutes that it took for me to get home, my ex at the time was in a complete rage. I didn't realize that he had had a relapse into heroin, which I didn't realize that he had a problem with in the past, but he did. So convinced that I was cheating on him, I was met with a knife. And for about 45 minutes, I found myself in a very precarious situation with my significant other at the time being convinced that I was cheating on him. I had to decide, which truth am I going to give him? Am I going to give him the truth that he's already convinced of, this idea that I've been cheating on him? Or am I going to give him my actual truth, which was that I stopped at the grocery store and I had never cheated on him? For 45 minutes, I can't quite describe how the world can seem like it comes to a standstill, but at the same time, your internal world feels like it's going miles per second. I decided to go with my truth, the real truth, that I had been to a store and that I wasn't cheating on him. And after sticking to that truth for 45 minutes, my significant other at that time finally said, okay, I believe you. If you were cheating on me, you would have broke by now and you would have admitted it. With his mission accomplished, we went to bed. The next morning, he woke up for work, and with a lot of shame in his eyes and a bit of heaviness on his heart, he said to me, if you're not here when I get home, I understand. He left for work. Not only had I not left, but I had dinner waiting for him when he got home. And in my book, I write this, and this is not an easy thing to admit. It's actually quite embarrassing, but it's the truth nonetheless. When he got home, he was so disturbed about the fact that I was there that I hadn't packed my things and gone, that his world seemed to have come crashing in. The gravity of the night before's situation fell on him hard. And he, with his heroin addiction, did the one thing that myself and sober mind couldn't do. He took the responsible route. He put himself into rehab. He said, I deserve better and you deserve better. And not on my own accord, but with that decision that he made to leave and go get help, the trajectory of my life was forever changed and for the better. I wound up back home with my family, and it was a blessing that I was welcome back there. I had wanted to go back to them sooner, but I was just so scared that if I went back to them, if I broke things off with him, that I would be then not only putting myself in danger, which at that point I already decided you've made your bed, you're going to lie in it, and you're going to just let this play out without involving anyone else, right? I was able to finally go back to them now and know that there would be no threat of any harm coming to them. So I land back at my family's home. And for the next 2 years, I had already been working as a beautician and unfortunately wasn't making enough money doing that. Not enough money to live the life that I wanted to live. So I went back and I challenged myself. I went to school to become an ultrasound technician. When I was there, I met friends and people who just vibrated higher. They were living lives that somewhere in here I knew was an option for me, but just didn't quite see a clear path to getting there. And then the amazing thing happened, right? When you surround yourself with a certain type of people, you start to pick up on their energy and you start opening yourself up to even more possibilities. So while I did amazing in ultrasound school, made amazing friendships, still had a lot of weeds of insecurity and fear to cut through. Because in my 2 prior relationships, I spent essentially from 16 years of age to about 29 years of age being cheated on, being abused mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically at times. And I found that even though I had separated from people who were abusing me and manipulating me, even though I had physically separated from those people, their voices, the things that they would say to me, and the things that I knew that I allowed myself to tolerate became part of my self-talk, became part of my thoughts. And that is the one thing that you cannot escape. You can't escape what goes on in here. You can escape physical places, but then the even harder work begins. It begins in here, in your mindset. And that is what I began to work on as well, with having that healthy space from those 2 relationships, from making sure that I spent time by myself before even looking in anyone else's direction. I made sure that I started to get here together. So as I challenged myself in ultrasound school, and as I was meeting just these amazing people, and they were introducing me to more amazing people, I was starting to get this whole other picture of who I was. When I was in those relationships, I dealt with a lot of situational depression. And that found me oftentimes under my blankets in my room upstairs in my parents' house with my headphones on. And what was I doing? Well, I was kind of like a caterpillar in its cocoon. I would be under my blanket with music blasting in my ear. And with every song, I would get lost in these daydreams of my future self. I would imagine my future self, how I looked, how I talked, how I carried myself, how I would react if I bumped into one of my exes in a restaurant, what I would be doing for work. I was imagining all of these things and playing these situations over and over and over again. And even though I had retreated under my blankets during these periods of situational depression, I didn't realize the really important and valuable work that I was doing just with my mindset, allowing myself to daydream and to dream bigger and better for myself, and to visualize and walk myself through all of these different aspects of my future self. And in that time, I finally, after a couple of years of that self-healing, I really did become that butterfly outside of its cocoon. So fast forward a few years, I graduated ultrasound school. I not only graduated ultrasound school, but I became certified to deal with adult echo, so adult hearts. That was my specialty. And met an amazing, amazing man. The first healthy relationship, the relationship that made me realize, wow, you can be loved. You can love someone and you could be safe in that. You didn't have to worry about that person and that vulnerability coming back to bite you on the rear end. I had someone who was behind me 150% and supported my dreams. Having that safety and that confidence, not only in him, but in myself and in the amount of growth that I had done and in what I had accomplished in my career, I finally felt that I was at a point in my life where I could allow that extra layer to peel away of vulnerability and become a mother, something that I never, ever saw myself doing. With that, we had our daughter, and I still worked as an ultrasound technician. But then very quickly after having her, we had my son. So with back-to-back babies and becoming a stay-at-home mother, which I hadn't intended on doing, I fully intended on being a working mom in this career, this thing that I found right after that life ended, that other life ended. I found this job that, working alongside doctors and people in the medical field and receiving compliments and being acknowledged, it felt amazing. I had to give it up because my husband's job went into overdrive, mandatory overdrive, and there were no choices. So home, feeling very kind of alone and exhausted and emotional with two babies, I got a message on Facebook from a friend of mine from high school, and she was selling Shakeology. And she was like, oh, do you want to make a few bucks at home while you have the babies? And, just get your mind wrapped around something outside of changing diapers. And I said, okay, why not? So I started running these challenges for Shakeology. And this is all part of Beachbody. I'm sure you're familiar with Beachbody. And in running those challenges, even though I didn't stay with the company, I realized something. I really loved motivating people. I really loved having that camaraderie. And even more, I loved watching other people get results and feeling amazing about themselves and coming alive. Because just like I had done with that little challenge, they were taking action and proving to themselves that there was more that they were capable of than they were allowing themselves to do. Having taken that lesson, and once my children got a little bit bigger, I wrote my first self-published book that's on Amazon. You'll find the link here. And after going through that book, I decided, you know what? Why wouldn't I start coaching people on my own, not for weight loss, but for mindset? For the one thing outside of ultrasound that I felt like I really had so much experience with. Actually, two things. I had a lot of experience with sales in different fields, And I had so much of just my own experience and understanding of mindset and understanding what it was to go from a place where your thoughts became the very things that were tripping you up in life, to being able to masterfully move through the self-limiting beliefs and the fear and the doubt and push forward anyway. I knew that. I had walked that line, and I knew I could help others do it as well. So I started my coaching practice off very slowly. I only had time for a couple of clients, and I only managed to get a couple of clients in the beginning. But what happened from there was I got my confidence. We all know children get bigger, right? And once I didn't have two little babies that couldn't walk and that I had to lug around everywhere and do everything for, things got easier. I wound up really understanding what I brought to the table in terms of being able to help others. And I found a passion for helping women entrepreneurs in particular who, for one reason or another, and a lot of us tend to do this when we're in business, especially first starting out, over rely on business strategy and not really understand that mindset is the vehicle that drives your business. Mindset amplifies all of those strategies. So I shifted specifically to helping women that were in business with their mindset. And doors just opened up for me. Not just doors in terms of opportunity, but even more fulfillment than I had already experienced and imagined. Being able to help other women and get to know other women who came from backgrounds similar to mine, where they were in a marriage that was horrible, where they were reliant on somebody else to meet so many of their needs, everything from financial needs, the roof that they had over their head, whatever little joy that they were able to get in that relationship. They were so reliant on someone else. And the fact that these women were able to take enough steps forward and believe enough in themselves to start a business, and they just needed that mindset piece to get them over the hump initially, it lit me up. It completely lit me up to help these women and to see the results and to understand that what I was able to do for these women was allow them to see what they could do for themselves. And really, we all have the three most basic human needs. We all need to be seen. We all need to be heard. And we all need to be understood on some level. We want to feel those things. We want to be seen, heard, and understood. And I was able to do that for them. It's not easy when you have big goals and you have other people around you who maybe are still in those not so great relationships, either with a significant other or with family members, or even in a toxic work environment that's holding them down. And so here you come with your big goals and dreams and hopes and aspirations. And you kind of get looked at sometimes like you have three heads. And you kind of feel sometimes like you're talking to a wall because maybe they're not there yet. And maybe they feel a little bit jealous in the sense that you're starting to do things and you're starting to feel ways that they wish they felt and that they want to feel. And the fact that you were once where they were and you're moving on, it could feel a little bit triggering. So it was so important for me to be there for these women. And I continue, even though now I work with men as well. I've gotten some really amazing male clients too, I have to say. But I work with men as well. And whether it's men or women, I really just embrace the idea of all of us having the self-awareness being able to become your greatest asset in life and business, it takes time. It takes time, and it takes trust in yourself. But I'm here today to tell you that you can get there. And I always like to leave you with a couple of tips. These are the exact tips that I used. I wasn't doing them, with the intention at the time, but they were helping me deal with all of those past relationships and moving forward. They cleared that path forward for me. And so I love sharing them. One of those things is journaling, reflective journaling. Your self-talk feeds your thoughts, and your thoughts become your actions, and your actions and action takers get things done. So in the process of journaling, I was able to start seeing patterns and connecting the dots and getting a deeper understanding of myself, my thoughts, and my patterns, my coping mechanisms. And from there, I was able to start making small but mindful and conscious changes. Let's swap this coping mechanism with this coping mechanism. Let's swap this self-sabotaging thought and behavior with this self-building thought and behavior. And so I kind of unofficially dubbed myself the queen of reframing. About a year and a half ago, my husband had a massive stroke. And with our, at the time, 5 and 6 year olds, it was just devastating because he was in the hospital for about a month. And I remember sitting our children down, and our daughter and son had both at certain points received speech therapy when they were much younger because they were delayed speakers. And I said to them, Daddy has a boo-boo in his brain. So we're going to have to kind of teach him the same way that your speech therapist used to work with you. We're going to have to, help Daddy learn how to speak again, and help Daddy, figure out what this is, because right now he doesn't remember what this is called. So isn't it so cool that you guys are going to get to teach Daddy? And instead of that fright and that worry, they shouted out this cheerful, enthusiastic, yay, yay. And at the time, because I now homeschool both of my children, my daughter, who was in school at that point, my son was still home with me, her teacher said, Noemi comes in here every day and she talks about how her daddy's doing and how excited she is to teach her daddy and what lesson she's going to teach her daddy. And she said, you are doing an amazing job. And, I had already understood how important mindset was just from what it was able to get me, myself, through the weeds of. When I had that realization, and it was pointed out to me, that my mindset was not only a benefit to me, but that it could have such a strong effect on those around me, complete, just a feeling of victory, a feeling of, I'm going to be able to pass this on to my children. I'm going to be able to pass this on to my husband. I'm going to be able to pass this on to my sisters and my mother and everyone else around me, everyone who will give me a chance to share my message with them, which is exactly why I am so grateful to Lisa for giving me the opportunity to speak to you here on She Is Me, because there are so many of us out here, and as different as we all are, we have so much more in common than we think. And if we take the time to listen to each other, to see each other, hear each other, and understand a little bit, just a little bit, that opens up the door for other women. It gives other women permission to see themselves, hear themselves, understand themselves, and then pay it forward to the next person that they encounter. So get to journaling. It is amazing what you find about yourself when you journal. And it's so easy to get so kind of fixated on that end accomplishment that you miss the magic that happens in all of these moments in between. The people that you meet, the interactions that you have, the personal growth that you endure. Time can go by so slow and sometimes so fast in the same breath. And you can feel like, wow, I've been standing here in this spot for so long. But when you have this journal that you open up and you see your journey, you see how your journey has unfolded, it's empowerment. Understanding that you get to pick up the pen at any point, and that chapter that might be titled Stuck that you feel like you're on, you get to write that next chapter. You take the pen out of anyone else's hand that it might be in right now. You take their power away from writing the story about you. And you write that story for yourself. And so I would love to invite you to join me on my Facebook group, She's Subwas Mindset Incubator on Facebook. You can join me on my Instagram, which is She's Subwas Mindset. And you can listen to me on my podcast, Personal Growth Lifestyle, but we're currently rebranding it also to She's Subwas Mindset. I invite you to come and join me in all of those places because I want to share your journey with you. I want to hear your journey. I want you to reach out to me and tell me where you are right now, what you've overcome so far, and how much further you know that you're going to go. Because there is power when we get together. There is power when we share our voices. And in your most difficult moments, in those moments where you felt this small, there is power. There is power in the decision to get up and try again. There's power in deciding to wake up and find gratitude, if for nothing else, for the fact that you've been blessed to wake up again and give this thing another shot, do something differently. So I encourage you to follow me on those channels, connect with me. Let's chat. If you have an amazing story, I would love to help you get your story out there via my podcast. And again, we have so much more in common than what separates us. And when you share your story, you are giving another woman permission to share her story. Let's all take the time to see, hear, and understand each other and create a voice that is so loud that we cannot be ignored, that we cannot be unheard, whether we're speaking individually or collectively. I'm Lisa Latimer, and it has been an absolute pleasure in having the opportunity to share my story with you today here on the She Is Me conference.